Hello YouTube, it's Seamoose here, and I have a lot to discuss. Today I'm going to have an Overwatch discussion video specifically on the World Cup, but I'm probably going to have a vlog in the next week talking about the many things that have been going on in my life recently. For example, Method qualified for E-League, and that's super exciting. Also, one note about this particular video, I was playing ranked, so I had voice chat on, but my teammates were just flaming each other and really said nothing important, so eventually I meet them. Anyway, to the actual discussion of this video, today I want to talk about the Overwatch World Cup and the 4 teams that I think are probably going to be the favorites going into this. It is more a fun event than anything. These teams were voted in by the community and also picked a little bit by the captains of each team. But I think there are definitely going to be some people who go into this who really want to win and try hard and try to kick the other team's asses. And some international competition this early in the lifespan of the game is also a really cool thing. And I'm really looking forward to the World Cup. I think it's not going to be like a super competitive tournament or whatever, but it's going to be a really good time to showcase the game. Perhaps Blizzard announces something there. I don't really know. I have no idea. But I am just excited for the event itself, and I think that, like I said before, some of these teams are actually super seriously competitive teams and are going to have rock star lineups. So I want to quickly go over my pick for probably the top 4 teams. So the first team, I would say the team most likely to win would be Team Sweden. Team Sweden has IDDQD, who's a DPS from Fnatic, Zave, who's a support from LG, Chips Hyen, who's a support from Envy, Sebo Osai, who is a support DPS sort of fill for Misfits, Coco, who is the tank for Envy, and Tavik, who is a DPS for Rogue, of course, who won Gamescom. So that is a rockstar roster. Those are all top teams in the international stage. And they also have a good distribution of a lot of supports, actually. They have 2 DPS mains as well as a tank. So the teams are going to be pretty balanced in terms of roles. Another team I think is going to do pretty well is Team NA. So obviously going to be the hometown favorites. The team consists of Seagull, the captain, who is the DPS player for Energy, but also can fill pretty well. Stare, who is a personality and is likely going to fill for this team, but he was, I think, max rank 81, 80. He's a good player in his own right, and is actually a very, very well-known player and personality in the scene in other games. So I don't think he's a slouch, even though he doesn't have competitive experience. There's also Tailspin, who is the projectile DPS for the most part for Envy. Adam, who is the support for Cloud9. Gods, who is DPS for Energy, and he's also been playing a little bit of tank recently. And then Mercer, who is the tank for Team Liquid. So NA, I think, is one of the strongest teams going into this. They're going to have the home field advantage. They are all strong players. Stare, obviously, is the only person who hasn't specifically had competitive experience, but that doesn't mean he's a weak link. He's a very strong player, and I could definitely see these guys making top 4 at the very least, potentially even farther. The next team I want to look at is Team Finland. Team Finland consists of Zappis, the captain, who is a DPS player for Ninjas in Pajamas, Taimu, who is the DPS player for Envious, Mafu, who's DPS for Ninjas in Pajamas, Kerp, who's a rank 84 support player, so to my understanding, he hasn't really played much on a team, but he's an incredibly high-ranking support player. There's going to be Himzi, the flex player for Ninjas in Pajamas, and Linksir, the DPS player for Dignitas. So that team, again, they have a non-competitive player, but he's rank 84 and he's a support main, which means that if he got to that rank as support main, he's an incredible player, and I'm sure that he's going to fit into the team well. And honestly, I could see these guys doing really, really well. Finland is stacked in terms of DPS talent. That makes me question whether or not they're going to have issues as far as roles is concerned, but it's going to be a different meta by then. And I'm sure that we might see some crazy strats. And I would not count these guys out as far as seeing them make it towards the later stages of the tournament. They have probably one of the strongest rosters in terms of pure DPS potential alone. And I would imagine that even though this is a for fun event, this is a community event, that they're really going to want to win this. That's the thing with competitive players. Competitive players are competitive by nature. Even if it's for a fun event, they're going to say, screw this, I want to beat these other guys. The last team, and I'm going to be a little bit biased here, the last team I would say for top 4 is going to be Team South Korea. So Team South Korea has 6 high-ranking members. Their lowest ranked player is Team 85. 85. And they have the highest ranked player in the world in Zumba, who played for the Africa Broadcaster Battle, the Giga Legends match. They have Miro and Eska, who played for Team Pokemon. I hope I pronounced it properly in the Africa match. And this was a league that happened over a period of a couple of weeks that myself and my co-caster Jamerson casted in the mornings. Obviously, it was in Korean time. It was in the nighttime. And these guys are all really, really good players. There's another player whose name I actually can't pronounce, who's the support, the healer. Zunba's a tank fill main. Miro is a tank player as well, and then Eska is a DPS player. And then the roster is rounded up by Maximum Impact Gaming members Tyrong, who's a support player, and Arhan, who's a DPS flex. So not only does the South Korean team have the highest roster in terms of skill rating alone, the average skill rating, they're also all players who have played in competitive, essentially, on actual teams. And my guess is that the South Koreans are also going to be very inclined to working their asses off and playing together and trying to just win. The South Korean esports culture is huge. The Overwatch scene there is amazing. There are so many people who like the game and are very competitive and want to play the game. So I'd imagine that it's very, very possible that the South Korean team might turn some heads, because generally they're considered not to have as much sort of macro game understanding or experience as some of these Western teams may have. So that's, I think, the top 4 teams that we can expect to see. NA, Sweden, Finland, and South Korea. If that isn't the top 4, I wouldn't be surprised. There's some other good honorable mentions, and speaking of those, I'm going to go down through them. So Team China is a combination of entirely Invictus Gaming members. They have 2 teams, and those 2 teams were voted together, and that team is basically the team that's representing Team China. So that's literally a team that's essentially the same professional organization. So they're going to have a ton of practice. They're going to be able to practice with each other from the get-go, and that could be very scary for the other teams. Team Spain is fairly strong. They have pro players like Harry Hook, Bromas, Winghaven, who are all well known in the EU scene. Team Germany has the captain is Internet Hulk, who is a fantastic player, and they have a couple of other well-known high elo players as well. So I could definitely see Germany doing pretty well. And then something interesting I want to talk about for a moment is Team Canada. So to the dismay of a lot of players, Team Canada is probably not as strong as it could have been, and I think a big issue there was that instead of the strongest players being picked, it was more a showcase, and that's sort of what the World Cup is supposed to be too. It's not supposed to be all pros, but Logan, DeBest, and Huck were picked up by Surefour, the captain, as the captain's picked players. And Poke, who's a well-known streamer, was picked as well. Poke is actually a really good Genji, and has a couple of other heroes he plays. He's at a super strong level, so I actually don't think he's that much of a problem. But I do feel a little bit bad for the Canadian fans who probably voted for serious rosters, because I think Team Canada could have been a lot stronger. But due to influencer decisions, you know, specifically the captain's pick, I think they probably didn't get the team that would have been the strongest team for outright. But I do think they have a team with a lot of personality. And again, this is a showcase. This isn't actually for money or anything, lots of money. These are supposed to be for fun games for Overwatch's first Blizzard run event. And as a result, I don't really blame Canada, and I still think they could do pretty well. It's not like their team is absolute garbage or anything. They could probably easily get top 8, maybe even more. We'll just have to see. The other 2 teams I think are pretty interesting to look at are Team Australia, who has members of Temple Storm and Chiefs. So the 2 highest rated teams in Australia, and they are really, really good. There was a TF2 scene for a while in Australia. It was pretty popular there, and probably their biggest issue is Mooselk, who is a famous YouTuber, also streams, I think, pretty famous Australian gaming personality. And even though he's not going to be the best player for Team Australia, I think it's a similar situation to Stare, where I don't think he's actually going to be absolute garbage. He's just not really going to have competitive team experience, which is important, but depending on how things go, might not be the deciding factor in whether or not a team wins. The last team I want to point out as an honorable mention, I think Team Japan, with 3 members of Detonator, the strongest. I think it's undoubtedly the strongest. Japanese team has, so 3 members from the same team for the World Cup team means that it's going to be, if these guys have synergy with each other, they're going to be able to practice. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get top 8 perhaps, and just perform pretty well. So if I'm not mistaken, we're still waiting on some information about what's going to happen because there's a lot of teams, like so the format and stuff. But the World Cup is shaping up to be really exciting. I think that we're probably going to see Blizzard pull out all the stops and try to represent their game the best they can with the giant international community. And I'm just looking forward to myself just spectating it because I hope it's going to be an awesome event and sort of just usher in a new following and a resurgence in the people that are interested in Overwatch. It's not like it actually needs a resurgence, but you know, the more people playing the game and watching the game, the better. And I am just really excited for a large event like this hosted by the actual publisher themselves. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Those are just my thoughts on the Overwatch World Cup. Let me know what your thoughts are and whether or not you disagree with my picks and my teams. For now, though, I'm going to wrap up this video by saying I will have a vlog coming up very soon. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming for me personally, and I'm also doing something tomorrow night. It's called the Free Agent Invitational. I'm going to be doing that on my Twitch channel, which I need to find a way to change the name of because it's really, really long. But I'll link that as well and probably let you guys know a little bit more about that if I can, because it's a way for the community to see a lot of free agent talent and hopefully for the free agent players to get a name for themselves. Anyway, though, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all later.